A new layered cyber attack approach has recently been employed targeting NATO members.
Yeah, I mean, this is actually a very sophisticated, I would say, approach where the makers of this particular malware, what they have done is they first, try to get into the system. And in this case, they're using an email spear phishing kind of attack, and the email's title is NATO Secretary meeting. And this is more focused. This attack has a very different vector because it is more like a political, kind of a email in which it is a social political email, right? And it basically targets NATO being, at that particular level. It targets the end user. The end user, there's no payload which is delivered with the email, and there's no macro which runs with it. The smartness of this particular attack is that it evades, very intelligently if there is some investigators or if there are some researchers trying to contain it, like say in a honeypot, or they are trying to do some kind of a research to understand if this is a malware, So it kind of evades that because it goes silent, and it looks out if there is no researcher trying to fiddle with it, right? And then the next step, what it does is it goes out after it's on the clear. It goes on and downloads only one payload, and that one payload is basically on-the-fly executable Flash file, which basically has the malware in it. The purpose of the malware and what it does is still not clear. It's still in the air, but then the technique which is used, and it's been kind of referred to the nested doll approach, the Russian nested doll approach, and I think so it is pretty smart, pretty clever. I'm sure there'll be a lot more about this particular malware, this particular Trojan, but then it's got some, interesting characteristics to it, and then I think so. The main thing out here is the attribution of it is more tough, and their sources are not being discovered so far.
Yeah, I remember when I was reading it too, it was saying when it was found out, also, like if it was detected, then it would swap out its final payload for junk data as kind of like a booby trap. So like the researchers would find it, and then its payload would get swapped out for junk data, and then it would just look like, not.
Yeah. No, I think so. Like a lot of these intelligent, hackers are becoming more and more smarter, especially like when they know that there is detection, methods put in place from. Maybe it could be like, endpoint detection strategy, it could be a honeypot strategy, it could be researchers trying to contain, analyze on a sandbox environment. So any of these strategies, some of the smarter payloads in one, this is a very good one, a good example, is like, either they swap themselves with the payload, or they jump from machine to machine when they spread, and then they delete their tracks. So nobody knows from which computer they started. They also have mechanisms in which they either encrypt or lock the data or the payload which they are sending back. So there's all these interesting techniques which are out there, and this one actually is really interesting. I was really excited to hear about it, and I wanted to share it out with you guys. I think we both feel the same way here. Yeah. All right.
Pretty sneaky.
I think so. Yeah, I think we covered everything with this particular one.
Again, we still don't know the motives or identities of the attackers, but it seems like no major damage was.
And they're using the geopolitical NATO, I would say, angle on this one, where they kind of touch those users worldwide.
We do know it was targeting NATO secretaries because the email title was NATO Secretary meeting.
Yeah. So all the NATO secretaries, every nation represents NATO, and these are those secretaries, which are representatives from nations. So kind of, a very global approach, I would say, for the NATO members itself.
Right.
All right. I think so. We covered this one pretty good. Again, those of you who want to send more topics to us or different types of topics, do email us and or ping us on the chat on our website, cybertraining365.com.
Or hello@cybertraining365.com.
Yeah, I forgot that one. All right, thanks for joining.
Thank you.